Hello everybody, this is Sierra from Sierra T Designs and I have a new card for you guys. I hope you'll enjoy and let's jump right into the making. So to start, I have taken my image here and I've used Photoshop to kind of lay out how I wanted it with this sentiment. And the image and the sentiment are from the Clair Designs Floral Friendship Digital Stamp Set, which will be linked and listed down below. And I have printed it out on a piece of 80-pound Neenah solar white cardstock. And I've cut that down to be 4 5/4. Like 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. And I'm going to put it on a black mat. If you guys have been with me for a minute, you know how much I love black mats. So my black mat will be cut to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and this will be put onto an A2 sized card base, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So we're going to jump straight into the Copic coloring because the majority of this card is Copic coloring. So I have this sped up a fair amount. I did leave it all in. I have had comments multiple times on my personal channel about how to blend your darkest color and your lightest color and a mid color. So I have decided to leave in the Copic coloring just so you can see the process, but it is quite sped up. So for the pink flowers, we're going to do RV13, RV14, and RV25. And I like to lay down a wash of my lightest color first and then go in with my mid-tone. And in this case, we're going to do the darkest color coming from the center of the petal and the lightest color kind of ending at the tip of the petal. But anywhere a petal overlaps or anywhere there's a fold in the petal, I would also put my darkest color there so that you create some contrast between where the shadowing would be. Now, by no means am I the best Copic colorist or the best at light sources or where the darkest part of the flower would be, but this is kind of my rule of thumb, and this is what I've been practicing. And I think if you looked at one of my first Copic color videos and then you look at my later Copic color videos, you can see that I have improved. But of course, it's all practice, right? And the center of the flower always throws me off a little bit just because there would be so much shadowing in the center. So I always struggle a little more with where the shadowing is there. But I think I pull it pretty much together and I try to leave a little bit of lighter space. And any time that I kind of overcolor something or take away too much of the lighter space, I do come kind of in with a Jelly Roll pen and add a little bit of highlight around the flower petals. So although ideally you would do that in your first stage rather than having to add it with another medium later, I kind of suck at that a little bit. I'm a little bit heavy-handed, so I have a tendency to put too much color down, and then of course you can't take it away, so you just roll with it, which is what I do. And I am doing more than one petal at a time just because they're kind of small. Well, I mean, you should maybe do one petal at a time. You get a more consistent blend. But I found that just because they're smaller areas, I don't really find that I have any issues. So I'll do 1 or 2 or 3 petals at a time together. And then just keep going in lightest color into mid-tone, mid-tone into darkest, darkest back into mid-tone, and mid-tone into lightest. And I have generally found that I like to go back over the whole petal in my lightest color, which of course will then make your lightest color a bit darker, but I don't mind that so much, so I've kind of continued doing that. If you wanted the color to be a bit lighter, I would suggest not doing that necessarily, but that's just kind of how I've made my Copic coloring work for me, and by all means, play with it. There's so many beautiful Copic colorists out there that there's so many ways to do this, and you just kind of have to work with what works for you. And there's one of my kitty's tails popping in. I pretty much always have a kitty supervising my coloring or my crafting or my creating, so that's always a bit fun here, but it also means that there's cat hair on pretty much everything I own, which can be interesting when you're trying to do something that's a little bit precise and then cat hair gets glued into it. But what are you going to do? I'm a big advocate for animals and have a very strong love of cats, so we have a very big cat house here. But yeah, so we're almost done with the pink flowers, and we're going to jump into the little yellow flowers. So I did decide on only 3 colors for this card, mostly. I am going to outline in a blue, just because I feel like it really makes it pop, but otherwise we're only going to use 3 sets of colors. So we have the pink, which is the pink flowers I just finished, which was your RV13, RV14, and RV25, and then I also have yellows, because I love how yellow and pink go together. So for my yellows, I'm going to use Y06, Y08, and Y17, and I'm going to do these as the same kind of coloring that I did on the pink flowers. I'm going to do a darker center and a lighter tip to the petal. I just like how that looks, and I kind of figure as these ones are cupped, they look like buttercups. They're kind of cupped, so you would have a darker center. And then for my greens, I'm going to use G02, G16, and G19. And a lot of the leaves don't overlap one another, so I mostly took my darker shades and added it to the veining within the leaves and kind of just added a little more contrast there, because you wouldn't really have much shadowing as nothing's really overlapping, so they'd all have direct sunlight. But that's just kind of my rule of thumb. By all means, whatever works for you. And I missed a petal there, so I had to go back and color that as well. Then I'm just going to finish up the greens. And then I did choose to go in with my favorite blues for outlining images, just because it kind of helped with the contrast against the white color of the cardstock. And I like how it looks. Definitely a personal choice. If you saw the mandala card that I did about 2 weeks ago on this channel, I actually outlined in grays. So this is just, I like how it pops the coloring off of the page. This is definitely an extra that's not necessary, but I just like how it looks, so I have a tendency to bring them in and do that. So for my my outlining here, I'm going to use B00 and BG000, so BG000. Because I want very light colors. You could also bring in the Copic blender and use that to blend out the colors as well, but I only brought in those two because these are quite light colors, and against these brighter colors, I find it just makes it pop, but in a subtle way. So it's not drawing attention from your coloring, but it is adding a little bit extra bling or shading, or I'm not even sure exactly what it adds. I just love it. I just love how it turns out, so I have a tendency to outline my images in a blue or gray depending on what I've done. And then I am going to glue this down, so I used my Nuvo Deluxe glue, and I'm going to glue my my panel down to my black mat. As you know, I love black mats. It's kind of my thing. One of these days I'll probably stop doing it, but so far I have not stopped. I just love how it helps the colors pop. And then I'm going to glue that down to my A2 sized base. And then I'm going to bring in my white Jelly Roll pen. This is this size 05, and I'm just kind of using it to add a little bit more white wherever I feel like it would look nice on the petals. There's no real rhyme or reason, there's no exact science to this, at least not for me, so I just kind of added it on the petals where I thought the sunlight might be a little bit brighter or where I thought it would look good. I mean, it's kind of trial or error. And then I also brought in some Nuvo Crystal Drops in Morning Dew, which is clear, and I added, I think, about 7 of those because I like to add embellishments in uneven numbers. I think that it ends up looking nicer to the eye, and then that's pretty much all. I'm going to give you a shot here where I hold it up so you can actually see all the coloring and see that blue outline and see those Nuvo Crystal Drops, and that is the card I have for you guys today. So thank you so much. I cannot wait to see you again. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel, and I will see you again soon.